Today on Hutcast, it's my privilege to announce Mrs. M. Mrs. M is from Austria, and she has lived her life under some regime of the Nazi Party. It was quite a time. I want you to know that what she's telling us today can equate to some of today's things. Again, this Hutcast is about a pragmatic look at what I see going on in the world. Without further ado, welcome to Hutcast. For home and workplace comfort, we here at Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning have over 30 years of residential and commercial experience in replacing, repairing, and doing general maintenance on your heating and cooling equipment. Call the experts at Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning. For all your indoor comfort needs, we are located in Coon Rapids and serve the entire Twin Cities area. Call one of our professional technicians today at 763-757-5040. That's Dependable Heating and Cooling. Again, 763-757-5040, Dependable Heating and Air. Welcome to Hutcast. We have a special visitor in our studios today, real-time, Mrs. M. Mrs. M is going to tell us some stories that we can use and tell you guys. It was my complete privilege to have her here today. Mrs. M, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mrs. M, we're going to call you that to protect you from any type of advertisements, people, things, and anything can fall out with this conversation we're having. So, Mrs. M, we're just going to say M from here on out, and we're going to start out with, what's your family history? Where'd you come from on the globe?
Well, I come from the globe. I come from Austria, and I grew up on a farm, kind of in the mountains.
Uh-huh. And what did you, how many people were with you in that farm? How many in the family?
4.
Mother, dad, brother, sisters, where are you at?
One sister, mother, and dad.
Okay. And tell us about this area on this farm. What did you harvest wheat or?
We harvest milk cows.
Okay. And you went to school in that same town?
Yes.
Again, we're protecting the area, so we're not going to say the town. You're going to have to imagine it without. And why don't you tell us a story about what happened, and are there any family members still in that town?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Well, we'll have to be very careful and make sure that this doesn't step on their freedoms as well. Okay, so again, thanks for coming out to the studio, educating our listeners to some of the stuff that you've seen in life. And wow, I'll tell you what, we're quite honored to have you here today. So let's start with a story. Which one do you want to do?
Well, I want to tell you a story when I was 12 years old. I lived on a farm, and we had, it's not a big farm, a pretty middle-sized farm. And I lived with my mom and dad and one sister. When the war began, I was about, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And it was normal for us. Whatever, sirens blowing and you hear bombing, that was something there's nothing you could do about it.
Mm-hmm. And in that town, you heard all these war events?
No, where I lived, there was a big army building where the soldiers, they marched and they did what the soldiers do, you know.
Uh-huh.
And also it was a big camp for prisoners. And they were war prisoners. And there were Russians, English, some French, and a few Polish people. Mm-hmm. So they came around once in a while, and the farmers rented them. They helped them to work on a farm because the fathers were usually in the war. You know, so that worked out. They brought them with a guard, and then he worked all day, and he went back home.
So they employed prison people to help on the farms when the fathers or the men of the farms were away at war.
Yes. So this was pretty normal.
And did you have such a person on your farm?
We had only once, and that was a French. You could go down there and get a French guy, and he comes out and worked for the day, and he got a meal. So my mother once in a while hired somebody just to get a halfway decent meal. Well, a big meal was, we didn't have much either, but they liked, like you would call in America, noodle and cheese, macaroni and cheese. Mm-hmm. And that was their favorite. But there was no cheese in it, just flour and water.
and I bet that was quite a meal for them.
Yeah, and a salad, So this is kind of how that went.
Mm-hmm. When they're away and they did the men's chores on the farm.
Yeah.
How long did they stay? Did they stay there? Did they go back to the prison at night?
No, they stayed there only a few hours. Uh-huh. If it was for haying, they come in the afternoon. If it was for something else, that, mm-hmm. is just kind of the way that worked out. It was pretty normal.
I see. And this is a common practice in that town?
Yes.
Well, I'll be darned.
So we had really hard time to get bread because there was no flour and no yeast available. So we got a card and there was a stamp on it, and you could go and stay in line for bread. Well, we went sometimes 4 a.m, sometimes 3 times, and by the time we got there was no bread. So that one day we went there, and we were lucky to get a 2-pound loaf of bread.
And could that feed the family well?
Well, till next time there was nothing else there. Mm-hmm. So, of course, half the bread was already gone.
I see.
One morning, about before noon, this man walked in our house, very nervous and very scared. And we know it was a Russian prisoner because he had the coat on. He got a long coat on with a bag around his shoulder and a canteen. That what usually the prisoners carried. And they were cleaning out some field someplace, some woods, and he snuck away. So when he came in the house, he asked with his hand, he pointed food, and barabori, that's potatoes in Russian, and bread. And my mother said, we don't have any food ourselves. We don't have anything, So then she looked at him and she said, I just can't do this. He's a human being. So she took half that loaf, cut it in half, and gave it to him. And he said, I give you soap, because they got from the Red Cross a package. They had soap in there. But he was in such a hurry to leave, because if they would have caught him, they would have shot him. Mm. And I don't know what would have happened to my mom. Give a prisoner something or don't report him.
I see.
So that was kind of the end of it for a while. Well, the lucky thing is, next day, my mother's cousin came, and she lived pretty far away in another town, a farmer. And she said, we scraped enough flour together to bake a few loaves of bread, and I thought you need some. Isn't that something? So we had a loaf of bread next day.
I'll be darned. Now, because bread was in short supply and wheat was in short supply,
yeah.
Did the government ration that out, or did you? How did that work?
What you got you had a stamp, a card, mm-hmm. and you stamped it, and you only can go once to get that in a week.
Okay.
They had real control over that because there was nothing there.
So the government controlled it?
Yeah. But they came to our house and they measured our milk.
Oh.
And we had to have exactly the amount of milk. So once in a while, the cats got a little dish that my mom cheated. That's mm-hmm. all. We couldn't even drink our own milk.
Oh, boy. And the government, which was the Austrian government, or was that the Russian government?
No, Hitler.
Oh, that was the German government?
Yeah, Hitler. That was the Hitler War we were under.
So you were under the regime of the Nazi Party?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And if there was some missing, what were the consequences?
Well, I don't know. Nobody really wanted to find out. They were pretty nasty guys.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Was it the SS or just the normal?
Well, the SS came when one thing really serious. Then the SS came. And they were kind of ruthless, They were just really fascist.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well, how are you seeing this in today's world? Are you seeing the view or a vision of what you've seen then versus what you see now?
Well, to some extent, people are somehow, how would I say that, more clinky. It's for me, and I take care of myself first, then you come later.
Mm.
That's how I feel.
It's the is for me attitude.
Yes.
Okay, hooray for me and too bad for the rest of you.
Yes. So the war went on, and we heard about it that the war is not going so good.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't listen to no radio because you were not allowed. If you did, you had to go with a blanket over your head and listen to the Free America, I think they called it.
So they were censoring you.
Oh, yes. So, and you could never, nobody can hear that. So you had to turn off the lights and everything. There's really not much there. Was a lot of propaganda too. But they said the Americans are coming. So, So
you had to sneak.
Yes.
To listen to the Free America.
Yeah, once in a while. We couldn't do it that very often anyway.
And how old were you then?
Oh, I was about 11 or 12 years old. So, okay. So what happened is they said Americans are coming. Well, we had no idea what the Americans look like. It sounds really dumb, but that's the honest truth. We were just kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of propaganda in there, not good ones. So they said that somebody told us the guy's coming in your town the day. So about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they said they're coming in that little town. So I ran upstairs on a hill, and the street was not too far away from our house. It was down a hill.
Mm-hmm.
I ran up with the binoculars, and I looked, and there was this Jeep, and the guy was driving, and there was a guy sitting next to him, and there was a big flag, and it says General Clark.
General Clark?
Yeah. Uh-huh. He came into town and liberated it.
I'll be darned. What was the town's demeanor at that point? How were they? Were they glad, or were they?
Well, it was mixed.
Scared,
it was mixed. More scared because they didn't know what's going to happen. So they came in, and after a few days, they made the decision to give all the prisoners for 2 weeks freedom to revenge themselves on the population and the people there in town. And that was not a good idea.
Why so?
Well, there was a lot of beating, a lot of nasty things happened. The soldiers just went out nuts, and then the prisoners got loose, and they could do whatever they want. They did some pretty gruesome stuff, and it was really scary time. And they could do that for 2 weeks.
Oh. So who exactly got free? The liberated
the Russian, the prisoners, the Russians, the English, all of them got free. But the Russians used most that. The English, and they didn't do anything. They just wanted to go home.
I see.
So one afternoon or midweek, later in the afternoon, we seen about 5 guys coming towards our driveway. And they were staggering and loud, kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom ran and she says, lock the door, lock the door. So we did. We locked the door. Well, they kept pounding on it. And before you know, the door flew open. And here stood them 5 Russians, stone drunk.
Hmm.
So we were frozen, and we were just so scared we didn't know what to do. So they came in and they talked Russian. We didn't know a word they said. So one Russian came up to my mother and he said, we want vodka. And my mother said, we don't have something like that, And then they looked around, they smashed some things in the hallway, and they kind of just were really unruly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came up again and he pushed my mother against the wall, and he took his arm, his elbow, and held it against her throat. And he said, we want some schnapps or vodka, don't matter. Well, we didn't had either one of it,
Mm-hmm.
So this was on for about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. And they were ready to go upstairs in our sleeping quarters.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we were really, really worried. Well, here comes this man, very nice-looking guy, dressed very well. And he walked up to the Russians, and there was a heated conversation for about 15 minutes. They were screaming and hollering, and he was screaming, and we didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, the Russians come back from the steps, and he walked out.
What happened?
Well, we couldn't figure it out. We looked, my mom was crying, and we were crying. And then this man came back, and he looked at us, and he said to my mother, "Do you remember me?" And my mother said, "No," wiping her tears.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "I'm the man you gave the bread."
Mm.
And he said, and here's the soap I didn't give you.
Oh.
And he walked away, and he turned around, and he said, "He will never bother you again."
Wow, how nice is that? He come back to stand up for you.
Yeah, but I wondered, who was that man that he came in the right minute, just when we were in such trouble?
Well, he's certainly put there by God, wasn't he?
Yeah. I have this feeling that intervention has prevailed.
Mm-hmm. Well, you couldn't have had better timing for that, right?
Yes.
Your mother and you guys took care of this guy.
Yeah.
You gave him half of what you had.
Yeah.
And then he comes back to save you.
Yeah.
Well, that should be a lesson for people right there.
Yep.
Give what you can give.
Help out if you can.
Because you never know who's going to come back to help you.
Yes. It comes in the right time. And this is something, when you're 12 years old, but I will never forget that.
Well, this is very important for the young people to hear this, and even regular people, because they don't understand what they've been through, what you've been through.
No.
Because we've never had this here.
No.
And a lot of these younger people they want government intervention. They want socialist ways. I don't know if a lot of people are like that, but there are some out there. And I hope if they listen to this podcast that they take your words verbatim.
Yeah.
Because you are educating more people than you know. We're in 15 countries now.
Yeah.
And we have over 1,000 downloads per event. And your event is going to be probably the biggest one yet because you have lived this atrocity.
Yeah. And it's just something what probably, and I hope it never will happen. But it happens in other places too. But this is something what most people don't live there. They're old enough now, in my age. The young people don't know what's really about it.
And the schools fail to teach history without cancel culturing.
Yes.
And if we don't study the past, we are condemned to the future. I've always been saying that from day one. Yeah. And these kids, these next generation from the 20s to 40s, aren't listening. And if they listen to you and hear your words, they might think, "Oh, we're full of poopy." But I don't believe that. Not for a minute. I think that your candor in this is a pretty big event.
Yes, it is.
And telling us this story, which we're grateful for, to come in the studio. And again, this is a big thing for these guys to come in here.
And I have to tell you something. When this is something completely different. When I went to first grade,
Mm-hmm.
I was, 33. Well, I think we started school when we were 6 years old. So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So one day they told us some really important person is coming to visit the school. So, we were just little kids, had no idea. So this man walked in, and he introduced himself as Adam Hitler.
Adam?
Adolf Hitler.
Oh.
So we kids had no idea, He's a very nice looking man. He was very smiling, and he brought everybody. The boys got a Bavarian pants, and I got a Bavarian dress. I wish I didn't throw it out. So
Adolf Hitler came to your school.
Yes.
And what did he do there?
Just visit. Just propaganda, probably,
Uh-huh.
So, he was not very big in it yet. So later on, you'd ever seen him. But at them days, it was the beginning, and that's what he did.
What did he look like?
He looked just like you see him sometime in a movie. The only thing he had very eyes like, you think if you think something bad, he would know.
So he had kind of see-through eyes.
Yes. But nice-looking guy, very polite.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? So what happened during that day then?
Not much. It was a low-key. I suppose it was just propaganda,
Okay, and they used that. Did they use that? Were they filming? Were they videoing? How did
No, they didn't. In them days, they didn't. He just came in, and he came in a car, and they drove him here, and he went to the schools, and they just say, this is Herr Hitler, and you had to raise your hand to say Heil Hitler.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I had to. But that's the only time I ever said that.
Well, I guess when you're in Rome, you do what Romans do because it's under Nazi control, correct?
Yeah. That was some things you couldn't help.
And you don't want to get hurt or bring attention to you or the family.
Or
so
family.
I guess the hand goes up.
Yes.
Isn't that incredible?
Yes, yeah.
Any type of other fallout from Hitler being in your school?
No, not really. The only thing what happened, maybe I shouldn't even go into this, but when my parents, they had a house kind of in town. It had a lot of property there with it,
Mm-hmm.
And the farm where I grew up, where I was raised in, was owned by nuns. And so they switched us over. They took our property and sent us out to that farm.
I see. And the property that you were in switched you with the farms. What did they do with that property? It was a church?
I don't know, for a long time they built a lot of buildings there and stuff, so.
I see.
Yeah, that's about the only thing we ever, had to do with.
Okay. And this is in Austria?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Today, how big of a town is this, just roughly by thousands?
I have no idea. I think it would probably be, by now, like Minneapolis.
Oh, it's a big town.
Yeah, it got big. It was not that big before. When I grew up, was probably like Champlin and Anoka together.
Okay. Huh, I'll be darned. That's an incredible story. He left and he went away, and then everybody went about their business?
Well, it took a long time to get started. It was very hard. We couldn't go to school. We hardly any school because the bombing was every day. And even if we didn't get bombed, it was the air raid. You had to go in shelters. This is just something what came with the war.
So they shut down the schools.
Yeah.
They controlled what you've seen and heard.
Yeah.
They controlled what you grew and gave it back to you, but in rations. Is that correct?
Not what we grew. We ate a lot of rutabagas. And I swear to it, I never ate a rutabaga yet since I'm in the United States.
Well, no one should eat them anyway, right?
No. Yeah.
Boy, I'm starting to see a lot of similarities between what you're saying and Nazi war crime time and what we're seeing in today's world. I mean, it's changed with technology,
yeah,
but still the rudimentaries are still there.
Yeah.
And again, I want this message to get out to people to say, look, I see this, I hear this. I'm studying history, is to not condemn myself for this future. As I said before, those who study the past are not condemned to the future.
Yeah.
Is there anything else Mrs. M, that you want to cover while we're still online, or would you like to make this in a different session? Because right now you're at about 24 minutes, and I want to make sure you're comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. There's just so many things. Right now, I don't know what I could say more.
Okay. So at this point, Hutcast is going to take a little break. We're going to put a commercial in there and listen to our sponsors, and we're going to put you on pause. And again, thank you very much, Mrs. M, for taking the time, and maybe we can either make another session or we can carry on in the next segment. I'd like to talk to you today about security, home security, business security. We here at ProTech Security care about your safety. We've been keeping honest people honest, we like to say, and give dishonest people something to think about for over 20 years. Not only provide high-tech security systems for your home and business, we also provide basic network and router management LAN and Wi-Fi for our residential customers. Support audio and video monitoring systems, card access, security systems, cellular phone amplifiers, home entertainment systems, and much, much more. We have experienced technicians that will design a system that will work for you. We are located in Osseo, Minnesota, and are waiting to design a system to meet all your specifications. That's right, ProTech Security. Give us a call, 763-493-2020. We are pro at keeping honest people honest. ProTech Security, 763-493-2020. ProTech Security Systems. Now a word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor in part by Excel Roofing. Excel Roofing, they do it all. Roofs, siding, framing. You need a house? Give Excel a call. I've used these guys personally in the past, have a professional crew, they're conscious of your job, and they want to produce the finest quality of craftsmanship available. Excel Roofing, 763-712-0757. Again, 763-712-0757. Excel Roofing, Dayton, Minnesota. Okay, we're back with Hutcast, and Mrs. M is in the studio today giving us a wonderful, wonderful conversation about what she lived back in World War II in her town in Austria, which we're not saying names, places, or times, but I can rest assure you that these are real stories. And she's got another story for us, and I believe it's when they liberated Austria. And Mrs. M, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, why don't you walk us through that day?
Well, Austria came along pretty well. I mean, we got kind of used to the jeeps and the noise. And, you know, the soldiers took over the army base, and they strung all kind of wires, telephone wires. And as kids, we had to carry the milk into the milk hall in town. Mm-hmm. So one morning I carried the milk in, and I come back, and just when I turn up to the street where we lived, somebody said, "Hello, baby." And I looked around, and I see nobody, and I thought, what is that? And I hear again, "Hello, baby." And all of a sudden I looked up on a tree. He was up on a telephone post, stringing wires, and it was a black person. Well, I never seen a black person before. And he had the biggest white teeth I ever seen. And I ran like hell. And he laughed. I have laughed for the longest time. I came home and I said, "Mom, there's a black person sitting on a tree. Could that be the devil?"
Oh boy.
So the word got around that the people in town were not used to black people, because we never had experience. We never knew anybody. So we had meetings, and they educated the people, and then it was fine.
So, part of Hitler's propaganda was the white just
he said
race
the worst
supremacy.
thing. Yes, he scared the hell out of people, And witches were kids, but even grown-ups were afraid because witches didn't know,
Mm-hmm. And you didn't have any in the region?
Pardon?
You didn't have any colored in the region?
No, never heard of them. So, so that all changed. So,
and there was nothing wrong with them. They propaganded you into scaring what they were.
Well, yeah, but then there were a lot of them came in, and eventually all turned out well, and they were well received there. Once they know what's going on.
Well, that's pretty good. And he was up in the telephone pole running wires. He was a soldier, was he?
Yes, he was a soldier.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
And now that these soldiers were there, and they were there to help you.
Well, they did their thing, whatever they had to do. So,
Right. And of course, now the town is all on speed. They know what's going up to them. Or, I'm sorry, they're up to speed. They know who they are and what they do. And they no longer, that propaganda, they no longer have to worry about who they were because they scared you into thinking who they were.
Yes, yeah, because we didn't know, So the unknown is always the most scary thing.
Well, we hear a lot of that in today's political climate as well. They want to continually to scare you into thinking something, but no one knows what it is, so you can be scared of scared.
And it is not as scary once you know the whole story.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well, how about that story? That's an excellent story. And we have another one. If you were telling me about what was the last one there?
About when the Americans liberated the town, they took the nice homes and they threw the people out and they moved in. And that's normal. I mean, they were the winners,
Mm-hmm.
So the officers all had their own villas and they do their own thing. Well, my mother's friend was hired to take care of one officer, maybe with two of them there, to cook for them and iron their clothes and keep up the house,
Mm-hmm.
So she asked him one day, she said, sir, could I have a bunch of little kids, boys and girls. They never had hot chocolate or them little donuts. She says, would it be okay if I invite them sometime and, let them taste it? And he says, oh, sure, he was very happy.
Okay.
Well, we went there. We had a heck of a good time. We had the hot chocolate. While she made the hot chocolate, she said, go in the living room and, enjoy yourself. Well, we seen a glass jar there with a lot of balloons in there.
Okay.
So we were so excited. My God, so we all blew up them balloons.
Uh-huh.
But they were not balloons.
What were they?
They were, what do you call them? They were...
prophylactics.
Yes.
Oh, boy. That's part of the GI kit.
They were rubbers.
Boy.
So here this officer coming home and want to meet the little kids. He looked at us and he got so beat red.
Oh,
and
boy.
the ladies just say, don't worry about it. They don't know. We really didn't anyway. We thought it was balloons. It was our day out.
Well, in that time in life, they were balloons, yes.
When you think about it, how long a time this was, when you think that this is a balloon.
Well, I don't believe there's too many balloons in war era Austria. But I'm sure part of the GI kit, they rationed and they sent out with their troops prophylactics, and here you are. So that was your balloons.
Yeah, I have one more story to tell you. Then
okay.
This is it, and this is where I lived. There was a ammunition dump, where the soldiers stored their ammunition. It's kind of like a not a cave, but kind of woody area and a lot of rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to protect that, so they had guards 24 hours, around.
Oh boy!
So on the other side of that dump was a hill with a lot of sun and rocks.
What's a sun in a box?
No, rocks in a sun. It was a very sunny area.
I see.
With a lot of rocks there.
Okay.
And there was a lot of wild strawberries, and they are just delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I go and pick some strawberries for supper, for dessert or something. So I went there and I had a pretty good pail, half a pail full. And all of a sudden I heard this hissing. And I looked, and here was a snake.
Oh, boy.
And it's a viper. They're very dangerous. They have a cross on their back, and they kill you if they bite you. So, dumb kid, instead of running down up the hill, I ran down. And the snake was right on my heel. And there was a fence, kind of a wooden fence, kind of square little old-fashioned farm's fence. And I climbed up there, and there was a tree. I tried to climb on that tree, and that snake was right behind me.
What did you do?
I screamed, and the soldier heard me scream. He came over and shot the snake.
Holy mackerel.
Yes, this is the best story I ever had.
So which soldier from what country?
Pardon?
Which soldier from what country?
American.
Oh, I see.
They were there for quite a few years, you know.
I see.
So he saved my life, really, when you think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you gotten bitten, that venom
That
would have been
it. They wouldn't even found me.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, that's an awesome story. I mean, again, they were there to help. They were here to liberate.
They did a lot of good things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. In a nutshell, do you have anything else to add, Mrs. M?
No, thank you very much for listening to me.
Oh, I think this is going to be a wonderful story for a lot of people. And again, for Hutcast, Mrs. M has came into the studio for us today to give us her life stories. And I do hope sometime we could do some more, but let's see how this one goes out to the world. Again, for Hutcast, thank you very much. Hutcast, listen to us on every major podcast. And that's a wrap for Hutcast. Hutcast is, again, a pragmatic approach to seeing things how some people see them. If you like our show, give us a thumbs up on the Facebook site. Again, for Hutcast, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening. Then I feel okay, sipping it from the trash. Some man threw